I'm CK. Tonight we've got a real simple project, a little mini music maker that uses a 555 timer as an oscillator and has some switches and resistors to go through to set the frequency, which means it's an instructive little kit and hopefully it'll be fun to put together. Hope you enjoy the video. Let's open the bag up and see what we have inside. Again, it's pretty simple, so we don't have a ton of stuff. I have the circuit board. And where's my pointy thing? Where is my pointy thing? There it is. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 switches labeled 1 through 7 and 1, so it's an octave. I don't know if it's tuned for an octave, we'll see. As you can see, there's resistors here and a couple of capacitors there, a capacitor there, and a capacitor there. This 4.7 microfarad one, I believe, will be the one that is doing most of the work. The 555 timer is here. Power comes in here. I think it's USB. And then there's also power here. It's 4 to 12 volts DC. That's quite a lot of voltage range. So I think that's actually the power switch. And here we have another switch. I don't know what that would be. Maybe it's an octave switch, because it does seem to bring in these capacitors. Because a 555 timer is, as you very well may know, a very important chip. It's in almost everything in all kinds of form factors, from through-hole like this one to surface mount to whatever. And it uses resistors and capacitors to set the oscillation rate for the timer. There's lots better resources out there in the wild that you can look up, and I'll link at least one in the description. But basically, the values of the capacitors, values of the resistors work together to set the timing for a 555 timer circuit. Again, there's better resources. It's a good chip to learn how to use. So let's see. Again, the circuit board's pretty straightforward. And as you can see, you can follow all the traces. So if you want to see how these resistors here are getting chained by the switches into the bus going to the 555 timer, that would be very instructive. Let's see what else is in here. And there's probably a build guide for this, but I can't even remember where I ordered this from. And so I don't even know when I got it, and I don't know where it's from. So no build guide, we'll just put it together. Again, the values are on the circuit board, so that makes it very much easier. There's our power connector, plug it into USB. Got all the little tactile switches. Here's the 555 timer. Whose is it? It's... let me look at this closer. It is a... I gotta flip my inner magnifier up. It is a logo that's supposed to look like a TI logo, but it is not a TI logo. It's a rip-off chip. And then we've got the power switch. Oop, I got to take my super magnifiers off. Power switch. The 4.7 microfarad cap. Some little other caps. One of the cheap piezo speakers. And that's about it. So I'll get the soldering iron heated up and we'll put this thing together, and it'll probably be a pretty quick build. And as is typical, We'll start with the resistors, and the most in quantity on the board are these 2Ks, and they look good. Oh, they're gold tolerance. Let me check them on the meter to see what they look like. 1.963, that's close enough to 2K for me. Let's see, do we have to bend the leads all the way into the body, or can we leave them out a little bit? I think we got to go all the way into the body. Come on, go through the... No, you can leave about 1 millimeter on each end. Okay. Now I'm going to solder one to see how this board takes solder. The solder looks pretty good. The solder pad looks pretty good. And it takes solder just fine. Now this is not a through-hole board. It's not plated through-hole. So it's not the finest quality you can get, but it's good. Let me trim these leads off. Now I'll go ahead and put the rest of the resistors on the board all the way along here, and one here, and one here. And because I've already said pretty much everything there is to say about putting resistors on this board, I'll go ahead and mute the commentary, put the video in fast playback, and you can watch resistors just fly onto the board because it's resistor time. And that's all the resistors. Very quick and easy. I think I'm going to put all the little tactile switches on right now. Now they are... The body is not square, it's a little bit longer in this direction than it is in this direction, which means that it's difficult to put them in wrong. So you just look and the lead should go right in the holes like so, and then they stay in very quickly. If you try and put them in the wrong way, they of course don't fit. Oops. But you do have to watch. Some boards like this board are a little more... They don't have as big holes for the switches, so I just bent that one trying to put it in. So just be careful. Ooh, and these pins came out of the packaging all bent. That's why your needle nose pliers on your workbench are a very good friend for getting pins set back to the right size. And that's the switches. Now we'll put in our 104s and 103s, little capacitors, 100 nano, or 1/10 of a micro, whatever. And a 103, which is 1/10's position less than a 104. Hence 103. 1 0 and 4 zeros, 1 0 and 3 zeros. I'm going to go ahead and put this electrolytic cap on now. They do have clear indication on the board of where the positive and negative leads go, which is good. I'm going to put this switch on too. Again, I think it's octave switch. Now these are keyed, and there's a little notch in the base that goes to the notch that's indicated on the circuit board. It's kind of hard to see. You may look at the side and say you can't see it. That's because it's on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and solder that one on. I have to actually get more solder loose. Going to solder one pin on the switch and take a look and make sure it's flush to the board, and it is. These pins are a little bit close together, so just be careful. And these switches switch in these capacitors and the power too. Again, this board is you can follow the traces very, very easily, so if you look at a 555 timer tutorial on paper, or in text, or on a YouTube video, you can go through it with this board in front of you and see and practice exactly what they're talking about. See exactly what this ubiquitous chip is. The 555s are everywhere. Just like Chicken Man. Now we'll put the socket, we'll try not to drop the socket, and we'll put the socket on the board, and there's a notch on the socket that corresponds to the notch printed on the circuit board. I'm going to rest the socket on my pinky finger, if it doesn't keep trying to get away from me. So this is, by the way, this is an EQ kit EP8, and we're going to call the EP electric piano to be very grandiose for a little bitty thing like this. Now we'll let that one pin cool and check, and yep, everything is flat to the board. And we have the switch. The switch is not keyed, it can go any old way. Golly gosh, I did it again, so I'm going to do something that I recommend that you have in your toolbox, pair of locking tweezers that I'll just put on here like that, and it locks the switch onto the board, and I don't have to fuss with it anymore. Get one pin down and get rid of the tweezers. Now we'll put the little speaker on. This speaker is not polarized. Some in this class of speaker are, so just be aware. Some do care about having a positive and negative lead. This one does not. And as you can see, so again, we just put this is the 555 socket. These are, here are the two traces coming off the 555 going to the cap, which is then feeding the speaker. Now we're going to put power connector on. We're going to feed the wires through these little holes. And we're going to double them over and put them through the indicated hole. If we can, I'm really not the greatest at this. In fact, I think they tinned the end of this one a little too much. So it's got a little solder bead on the end, just making it hard to go through the hole. So I'll just snip that off. There we go. Oops. And that goes through the hole like so. And then I'm going to solder that wire right now because I know myself. And if I try and put the other wire through, I will knock this one out. So we'll just go ahead and solder that in at once. And I'm going to double check that because I'm not... Yeah, see, I didn't get it all the way through. Me and wire are not always on good soldering terms. And I gotta pull this solder wad back off so I can get the wire through there again. And get my locking tweezers again. Should have done this to begin with. That should have gotten it now. This is one, again, as I said, these are not through-hole plated, so you have to make sure you catch it in the solder on the solder mask side. Now we'll get the other, and we'll get the red wire in the positive hole. And same thing, they got a little, when they tinned this, got a little bit of a bead at the end of the wire. So we will nip that right off. And now it goes through. Now we'll pin that down just like we did with the other one. Now double check that too. And that's fine also. Now we will put the 555 chip in. Making sure the notch is pointing the correct way. And there we go. All done. Let me go ahead and plug it in. Let me turn the switch off. I think it'll be in the off position. Plug this into my USB dingus over here. And we'll turn it on. There's no LEDs, but we do have sound. It's not very loud, and I'm going to actually Oops, I don't have my phone with me. Oh, well, I was going to try and tune it. Now let's press the switch. Again, I think it takes it up an octave. It does, actually, more than an octave. It takes up like 2 octaves. So that's it. It's a very straightforward, simple kit. It is, in my opinion, as I look at it, an excellent way for someone to learn how the various settings of resistive values against a capacitor make a 555 timer change its oscillation rate, and that's very important to know. So I recommend this kit. I think it was like $6. If I can find where I bought it from, I will let you know, or I'll put it in the description, or yeah, I'll put it in the description. But in case you want to search for it, it's EQ Kit, EQKIT, and this is EP-8. So that's it. And I hope you enjoyed the video.